kids need new tools to navigate the challenges they face in the world. Can anyone relate? In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. We can't count on anyone else. We have to be the warriors for our kids. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marci Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DiManno. As parents, we understand that we are partners with schools and other leaders in our communities. Join us as we use the science of social emotional learning, or better known as SEL, as well as proven mind-body techniques to create a collection of exercises and tools for kids in all age groups.
Today, we are speaking with my good friend and co-host of this podcast, Debbie DiManno, about the Enneagram, and she'll fill us in on what it is, why it matters, and how you can use it in your own life and relationships. Get ready to have some fun and learn more about you and those you love. So welcome to the Warrior Parent Podcast today. Today's a special episode, and I'm going to be talking to my good friend and co-host, Debbie DiManno, about the Enneagram. So let us jump right in, and let's start with the obvious question for some people, like me originally: what the heck's an Enneagram?
I know it's sort of a funny word. I know every time we talk about it, Marci says, "Now, how do you spell that again?"
Yeah.
So just so you know, it's spelled Enneagram, and Enne is 9, and gram means map. So essentially, it is a 9-point map that helps us to discover our personalities, right? So just a little, backstory on the Enneagram. So I was on a personal mission 30, 40 years ago to really figure out like who I am and why I do the things I do. I was struggling with relationships. I was struggling with my health. I was having all kinds of issues, and a girlfriend of mine was doing some work down in the Bay Area with a group called the Pathways Institute. And there was this Enneagram workshop coming up, and it was extremely expensive, and I didn't even have the money for it. She paid for it for me to go. And it was a life changer for me.
Wow.
It changed everything. It changed my perspective on myself and my own journey, and then it essentially really helped me in my relationships. So as the story goes, I go to this workshop. I think there were about 250 people at this workshop, people from all over the world, very high level folks. And my girlfriend had been giving me this little test. And so I had an idea of what my Enneagram might be. And so I'm young and I'm all excited that there's going to be all these people just like me. And finally, I'm going to have found my tribe. So they start out the workshop. And this is like 3 days of workshops and panels. And it's pretty intense. But they asked, okay, so how many in the room kind of think they're 1? How many think they're 2? How many think they're 3? And I shoot up my hand because I'm so excited. And I look around the room, and out of 250 people, there's like 5 of us.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, oh my goodness. And so the light bulbs were going off. I think I started to cry, and I just realized like how silly I had been, thinking that everyone should be just like me, right? Everyone, I moved here from the Midwest. Everyone in the Midwest is very proud about their work ethic, right? You just work, and you don't do anything else. You just work. And so I came out here, and I think when my dad threw me in the car and sent me off, he said, just work hard, you'll be fine. And so I did. And then as a result, I just thought everyone else was just lazy, right? Because everyone just couldn't push and wasn't so driven and just worked themselves to the bone. So lo and behold, what I realized is that I was a 3 on the Enneagram point. I was all about the goal, but not much else in my life. If I wasn't working, I really didn't have any place for anything else, including other human beings. So
Oh,
so
wow.
that was where everything changed for me. And then I've used it ever since. It's been a lifelong thing for me. So the Enneagrams, I'm really passionate about. I had the girlfriend who took me to the workshop, we use them all the time. So when we're having a conversation about things, and in fact, my husband, who runs a large company or companies, every year, the first part of the year, I go and do these Enneagram workshops for people, and it's super playful and it's super fun. So,
Well, so tell us a little bit more about what it actually is. What is the Enneagram, and what does it mean to be a 3, or any
yes,
of the other numbers?
yes, yeah. So essentially, I'm going to give you all just a very brief overview of the Enneagram. It can be really complicated or it can be super simple. So we're just going to do like a very high level view today. But essentially, the Enneagram is a 9-point image, right? If you imagine a circle and 9 different points on it, it is set up in that way, and everyone at birth essentially is given a number on the Enneagram. And granted, the Enneagram has been around for thousands of years, but it's just been within the past 20 or 30 years that people have really started to use Enneagrams. They use them for team building, in work. They use them in coaching. They use them in therapy. A lot of people use them. And so essentially the concept is it helps you to have a self-understanding or an awareness of who you are and why you do the things you do.
Mm-hmm.
You ever
Mm-hmm.
wonder that? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the older you get, the more I think you tend to wonder. So, I mean, is it similar to like a Myers-Briggs personality test, or some of these other types of personality tests that kind of give you that
yeah,
insight
yeah.
into?
Yeah, I would guess so. Myers-Briggs to me is I don't know, it's a little more work oriented
Right.
thing. They're
Right.
really looking for, your values and things that you value as an employee, that sort of thing, and the
Mm-hmm.
ways that people can use you. And this really, for me, has been much more playful. I've used it in the, in the work setting for sure, and it is really been helpful for me and my trying to be successful, which is what a 3 does. But it has really helped in my relationship with my husband, with all of our kids, and also to have a nonprofit organization, right, and
Yeah.
understand where people are coming from. So
It seems like it's relating to that idea of having compassion versus judgment, so that, when you
yes,
understand where someone else is coming from a little better, you can come from this place of empathy instead of this place of, like you said before, why are they doing that? They're lazy, or
yes,
they're mean, or they don't care about anyone else. You could find someone in a situation where they're really worried about a certain thing, which can make you myopic in your focus, and then you're going to do some other things that people might just assume, oh, they just don't care, when they're caring deeply, just not about what
yes.
you're thinking about.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know that I had an empathy feeling ever in my life, to be honest with you. And that's a 3, right? And I
Ah.
just couldn't have compassion because I was so driven, and
Mm.
I just didn't understand that people are coming from very different places in our lives. So we talked about, a little bit of, you're born with this number, and people always come to me and say, "Oh, what? I don't think I'm that number. I'm really not that number. I don't want to be that number, whatever. Like, no, you're kind of born with the number. And then what happens is as you grow to the age of about 7, you have some type of wounding, right? And so the wounding doesn't necessarily mean you have to be abused or something like that. It's just something happens where at a very young age, you have to learn how to cope and how to get along in the world. So I always give this example of my husband, who has this very amazing, loving parents and family. And when he was born, his mom, I think, got pneumonia. She got really, really sick, and he had to be taken away from her for 2 weeks in the NICU. And so he didn't have that first sense of connection with his mom. And that was his wounding, right? We, for the longest time, we're trying to figure out, like, what in the world could have happened to you? How'd you get so crazy? Right. But yeah, so everyone has this thing while they're young. And it is how we cope and how we get along in the world. And so people who are unwilling to look at that place of the Enneagram and are unwilling to do self-growth and that sort of thing, end up in these ruts, right? That they keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it's because of that wounding. And unless you're willing to take a deeper dive and a deeper look inside, you can't evolve from that wounding place. And that's the true beauty of the Enneagram.
So that makes me think about, like you said, it doesn't have to be some big, because we know there's plenty of really traumatic things that can happen to children in their first 7 years. And we know how devastating that can be to their development, to their whole life, if they don't process, and get the help they need with it. But what about stuff like, I think about, like a kid's mean to you on the playground, or you have an art teacher say, that's not how you paint, or like some of these maybe. So those could be part of that wounding as well. And we all, I think we all have these kinds of things, obviously. So
for sure.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting.
So, and I think without the self-reflection, you and I know, like, how can you even begin to understand what someone else is going through if you can't have compassion for that person, and vice versa, right? How can they have a relationship with you if they feel your judgment and your lack of understanding, right? And I think this is more of what the world needs right now, right?
Yeah. So when you say you're born with a number, you're talking about like the basic personality traits that a person comes into the world with.
Yes.
Okay. And then things can affect that as well.
Yes.
And then what about, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but what about like if you're doing work on yourself, do people change numbers, or are you usually same number?
So this is interesting. Now, this is a little more complicated and it's difficult because we don't have the screen and you can't see the Enneagram points in the circle in front of us. But essentially, there are 9 points, and then you have what we call wings, right? So if I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, the numbers on either side of me are a 2 and a 4, right? So then you have a dominant wing, and that's where your evolution work is. That's where you really walk into being the person that you're hoping to be for this lifetime, if you will.
I love that term, evolution work. Why else are we here?
Yeah, right.
Do our evolution work.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then, so if you're imagining in the center of this circle, say, so the 3s, there's lines that go between all the circles, right? And 3s goes to 6 and 3s go to 9, right? So when you're in stress, you go to a certain number. For example, a 3. And when you're in your happy place, you go to a different place. So for me, and I'm referring to me a lot because I know myself better than anyone. It's
We
it's the best.
appreciate you being
Yeah.
the example and being vulnerable enough to speak about it.
Yeah, it's the best way to give the example. So when I'm 3 and I'm I'm working, and then I get to this place of overwhelm.
Mm.
I go to number 9, and I go to 9 in its unhealthy place, right? And a 9 is can at times get sort of wishy-washy, right? They have a difficult time making a decision. It can be kind of foggy. And so I can get into this very deep fog. And I've learned over the years not to take on too much, because I can go to that place where I just sort of become paralyzed and not able to make a decision. Now, if I'm my 3 and I move to a 6 on the Enneagram, which is the loyalist, in that place, I'm really healthy, and I'm being that person who is loyal, especially around my family and my friends and my community.
Mm.
You just don't mess with those people in my
Yeah,
world.
that's the Debbie I know.
Yes. And I can become a little bit intense about it, right? I'm becoming over loyal in some instances. But
Mm.
so anyway, so it can become tricky and complicated, and
Yeah.
so but it can be so playful also. And I encourage people to learn it, just so that they can have this compassion, they can have the
Yeah.
empathy, but also be playful around it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there are times when I'm working with you going, oh, there she goes. She's being that 9 again. And we'll talk more about the numbers in a minute, but people will understand Marci a little bit better in a minute. So
Yeah,
anyway.
and I do want to say we're going to put a PDF of some slides that Debbie's created that will show the pictures she's talking about. So you can always pull those up. They'll be on the episode page, and get a better idea of what she's talking about, as if this is intriguing to you. And I hope you do look into it a little further.
Yes.
Well, I think one thing I'm interested in is, you said it's thousands of years old. Tell me more about where it came from. And
Yeah. So it's rooted really in philosophy and psychology.
mm,
Psychologists today would say it's not technically scientific,
mm,
um, but it in probably the 80s, 70s or 80s, a couple of people got together, Riso and Hudson, and they came up with this test, actually, that anyone can take. So you can go to the Enneagram Institute and find the test there. There's all kinds of people using the Enneagram now. So there's free tests, there's tests that you can pay for. I get an Enneagram message every day from the Enneagram Institute that gives you a little inspiration.
mm,
So there's lots of ways that you can use it, but really, probably in the last now 40 years or so, it's become very much in what's the term I'm looking for? It's used in lots of different practices now.
mhm.
And a lot of high level folks tend to use it because it's helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, let's get down to the numbers if you're ready. Let's
You want to dig in?
Yeah, let's dig in. Let's hear what it all means, and then folks can be listening and maybe thinking about what it will be interesting to see if people listen and think, oh, I'm definitely a fill in the blank, and then decide to take the test, which is pretty intense. Not intense. It's complex. It's not like 5 easy questions. There's a lot
Yes.
of questions, and I don't know that you could manipulate the test, because as I recall, when I was taking it, I was like, what are they trying to get at here? But we'll see if people self-diagnose, if you will, or if it turns out to be very different.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and again, just a disclaimer, there's no perfect number. There's not one that's better than
Okay.
another. All right. So
We're not
no,
aiming for something.
No judgment, no judgment. You can't add the numbers up. You can't do anything with them. You just are a number. And the
Excellent.
idea is to evolve and be playful with your number, right? So,
Yeah.
all right. So here we go. And I'm gonna give a shout out to some of my family members because we use this a lot, and I know how this works with them. So, and we use this to keep us all on the straight and narrow. So number one is the reformer, the idealist. They are the perfectionist, if you will. So
Mm.
if you notice a one, I can see them walking down the street. Their hair is perfect. Men are perfectly groomed. Women are dressed a certain way. Their nails are always done. Like everything is just done to the T. Um, they typical people who are ones are accountants, right? And they're
Mm.
amazing accountants because everything's very black and white for them. And this one on the Enneagram works for them. They are very ethical, they're motivated, and then each one of these Enneagrams has a basic desire and then a basic fear, right? So the desire for a one is to be good and honorable. Okay. The fear is that they are unethical or immoral, and they get mad when they find people who are doing things that are unethical or immoral. And the thing about the
Interesting.
ones is that they can be really, really hard on themselves, right? Because in relationships, that's difficult too, because they're wanting their partner to be perfect. And that's difficult on the partner, but
Mm-hmm.
but as hard as they are on their partner, they're much more difficult on themselves. So I personally think that ones have a tough road, but when they master it, they're amazing in their oneness, right? And we need those ones in this world to take on a lot. So yeah. So those are the ones.
Okay.
All right. So the number two, the helper or the caregiver. All right. So you and I have a favorite too. Yuli, who you guys have all heard on the podcast, is a
Mm-hmm.
number two, and she's playful in her number two. My daughter is a two, right? So
Mm.
so those twos, I just love my twos. They're generous, they're helpful, they're really warm-hearted. But their basic desire is to be loved. And they don't want to just be loved. They want to be loved completely. Like you need to love all of them, right?
Mm.
And their basic fear is that they're unworthy of that love, right? So
Mm.
my daughter, for example, she's in this beautiful little relationship, and she's always, checking in, like, are we okay? Am I okay? Do you love me? All the time. And he just rolls his eyes and goes with it. And so that works for them in their relationship. He knows that she needs that, right? So, but you can imagine if someone doesn't know that about their partner, they're like, oh my God, okay, do I have to tell you again? Like, right? So you can see how helpful this can be around that. The other thing about two is that they're always, always, always giving, and they will do that to a point. When they get to that point where they've given too much and there's no reciprocation on the giving, now they're mad, and it's pretty hard for them to turn back on that relationship because
Mm.
someone has taken advantage of them, right? So that's the thing with our beautiful twos, but I surround myself with as many twos as I can.
Yeah, that sounds like a very nice personality trait. Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, so the threes. So yes, I'm the three, the achiever or overachiever, as I call it, the performer, always having to be successful. And they need to look good while they're doing it. They're sort of an image type, right? So,
Mm.
they can be charming and energetic. Um, but the thing about the threes is that it's hard for them to have a feeling, right? It's hard for them to have emotions. They have to work on those things. And people wonder, like, oh, well, how can they just get all those things done? It's because, well, they're ignoring all the noise. They're ignoring emotions, that sort of thing. They can walk into a room and read it very quickly, and see what's going on in the room, because they can sift through all of the emotional noise, if you will. So their basic desire is to be worthy and to feel important, because their fear is that they're useless or insignificant, that they will not be loved unless they are doing big things.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a hard one to be too.
Yeah, that feels like a heavy burden.
That's a big one. Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't always feel like that much fun. But again, if I had not known these things about myself, or was able to share that with my partner could think, wow, she doesn't have much emotion, right? How do I get to this woman, right? She's great for organizing my life and my house, but how do I connect with this person, right? So that can be a tough one. Okay, enough about the threes.
For now.
For now. So on to the fours. So
Yeah.
I think the fours are most unique. And in my opinion, I feel like the evolution of the planet is in a place where we're having more fours in the world. So the fours are the creative people. They're all about the beauty. They are the drama queens. They are what I call the hopeless romantic. So they're just constantly in these love relationships, and they feel like no one understands them, right? There's kind of a lot of drama, but my goodness, imagine if we didn't have that, right? So you see a lot of those creative people in the entertainment industry, right? A lot of the singers and the artists and the movie makers, and they are very self-aware. So they are feeling like if people do not love them just as the way they are, the way they show up in the world, that feels tragic for them, right? Because their fear is that they don't have a personal identity, and that they're not loved for being that identity, right? They're not worried about covering up how they look or whatever. They want people to love them just as they are, right? So
Okay.
yeah, so when I'm standing in that room and realizing, like, oh my God, if it was just a bunch of threes in this group of 250 people, we would have no art. We would have no music. We wouldn't have any fun, right?
Yeah.
Right. They were always just get her done. And what would the world be, right? And so that's the beauty of all of these different numbers and why they're all so significant in the
Yeah.
world we live in.
Everybody has their part to play. Everybody has carries that brings forth their gift.
Yes.
And what goes with it, the things they struggle with and the things they excel at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. On to the fives.
On to the fives. Okay. So this is my son, the pilot. So they're the investigators, the thinkers, or what I think is the overthinkers, right? So they're in their heads all the time, right? They are looking to get perspective on everything. I call them the hoarders of information, right? Because they pick a thing that they're going to be good at, but they have to be the best at that thing. Right? So my son, he has to be the pilot when he gets his, when he turns 16. First thing, because he's got to be the first at that thing. He's got, as young as you can be, he's going to do it. Then he goes to work for Southwest Airlines. Got to be the youngest kid to fly a 737, right? So this is how they are, right? And whatever it is they're doing, they have a difficult time relaxing, even when they're out doing playful things, because they have to be the best at that thing, right? So, for example, Einstein was a 5, right? So you think about some of the famous people. We forgot to talk about some of the celebrities and some of their numbers. Maybe we can go back and share those later. But they their basic desire is to be useful and helpful, and their basic fear is that they can be seen as incompetent or unskilled. So that's what they're most afraid of.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. So those are the fives. Also difficult in relationships for fives, right? They're pretty inward, and they can spend a lot of time alone.
Yeah.
Right? So
Okay.
yeah, so there you go. Number 5. Okay, so we're on to number 6. So this is the loyalist, right? And this is that place that I go to when I'm in my happy place. So the loyalist is a tricky one for me, because they can be so amazing and loyal in what they do, but they're incredibly cautious, and they're always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Mm.
They're like, oh my God, like, is this thing coming? And they're always they're in this place of worry, a lot of anxiety, because they just want to feel the need for stability and security. So imagine being in a relationship with someone like that, who's like, oh, are you going to leave me? I don't feel secure, right? That
Yeah.
whoever's in that relationship with that person has to be able to give that constant feedback about, we're good, you're supported here, you're loved here, that sort of thing, right? So lots of loyalists. There's quite a few of those around in the world too. So yeah, when they're in their healthy place, they're really amazing. When they're unhealthy, they can be a bit of a drag, if you will, right? Because they're always looking for that reassurance that, the sky is not going to fall today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
So, you know any sixes?
I think so, maybe. What I'm thinking of as you're talking about that is this Gen Z, and one of the aspects that seems to show up a lot with Gen Zers is this need for security. They're much more cautious
Yeah.
of course, we're generalizing as about a
Yes.
whole generation of kids, but
Right.
this idea of just needing to be safe and needing to feel that safety. And for sure, I know that resonates with my son, my younger son, that he
Yeah.
worries a lot about,
Yeah.
yeah, whether he's safe. And he has some reasons for that, but sometimes I think, yeah, where did that come from? Where is that? And the world can be pretty scary at times, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, but that for that number 6, that's the place that they come from, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So having compassion for that person, going,
Yes.
I can see why they're doing that, right?
Right.
They're just being in their 6, right? So
Right.
see how
Rather than
important.
just saying there's nothing to worry about, like just not getting it and insisting on not getting it, rather than trying to be in that compassionate place, that empathetic place where you're trying to understand where someone's coming from, which is
Yes.
the
Yes.
point of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yeah.
On
Right.
to
7.
number 7. Well, we all know a 7 now, don't we?
Well, I don't know. Tell me. Tell me what the 7 is.
So 7 is my husband, right? So
Okay.
they are the spice of life, right? The enthusiast, the adventure, what I call the epicure, right? So they're all about having fun, right? They can be knee deep in something they're doing. You can say, hey, you want to go have a drink, or you want to go, play some golf? They're out. They are gone like in a hot second, right? So
Mm.
they're all about having fun. And that's their basic desire, right? Is to be fulfilled and to be happy.
Mhm.
But their fear is that they're going to miss out on an opportunity, or
Yeah.
or be deprived of
Yeah.
something. They're the
FOMO.
yes, that's them. That's them.
Yeah.
So there's a funny story about my husband. So when we first met, we met on Match.com, right? And before I would date him, I made him take an Enneagram test. So for
This
the
might be a good idea for those
for
single
everyone.
folks out there. Yeah.
That's right. So I make him take the test. And of course, being a 7, he's like, oh, this is going to be fun. Like, this girl knows something that I don't, and yada, yada, yada. And then he comes back and he tells me his number. And I'm being very much in my 3 and all about the goal. And I'm like, oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no. I can never be in a relationship with this person, right? Because how am I going to organize and create a goal for this person who just wants to have fun all the time, right? So we have this funny story about when we first started dating. We wake up on the weekend and like, okay, what are we going to do? I'm like, oh, okay, well, at 7, we got to do this. I got to pick up this. The kids got soccer, and then we have a lunch, and then we're going to go do this. And then I'm going to go get some groceries because tomorrow we have to, like that. Right. And I would say, so what's your plan? What's your goal? He's like, I don't know. Like, I'm just going to see what the funnest thing is that shows up for the day. Right. So very different ways of living. But we've been able to take advantage of each other's Enneagram points, right? So he knows how I can help him to make the plans and be organized and do all those things. And meanwhile, he helps me to not take myself so seriously.
Yes, you trust him to take you on this great journey, and you guys are an awesome couple together. So thank goodness you didn't let your 7 bias keep you from exploring what turned out to be the love of your life.
Yes. That's exactly right.
Yes, awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I know some 7s. I know at least one.
And they are fun.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all need to have a few 7s in our lives.
Yeah. I would love for my 7, which is my mom, to meet Michael sometimes. I think the 2 of them would be a riot together.
Oh boy. All righty. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
On
to the 8. So we have an 8 in the family also. We have lots of kids. So the 8s are the challengers or the protectors. Or some people just call them the boss. A lot of times the 8s that you'll find can be lawyers, right? They take control kind of people, and they love to protect those the underdogs, if you will. Right? Nice. So the thing with the 8s you have to be careful about is well, first of all, you just don't want to piss them off because they can be tough. It can be really tough. So they are very confident, they're very assertive. But the concept is, once you gain the trust of an 8, you are protected for your life. Right? They take you under their wing, and they will make sure that no one will ever hurt you. Right? So the 8s are a little tricky. You got to tiptoe a little bit, but once they understand and trust you, it's a big thing. So their basic desire is to be free, to be in control and to be protected. And then their basic fear is to be controlled or to be hurt, right? So this becomes tricky for 8s being in relationships, because they don't want to be controlled. They over control the person they're in the relationship with, right? And they're protective of them, and so they can be a little overbearing. So whoever's in a relationship with an 8, if you understand that's who you're with, it can work for you, right? If you want to be in that sort of place, right? But you just have to be direct with them, with your communication. They don't like wishy-washy too much, right?
Direct communication. Honestly, that's one of those key talents or abilities that can help in so many situations. Just say what you want, just be clear. And yes, I'm sure there are certain numbers that are probably easily offended too, so you have to be gentle with your clearness, but if you don't say it, you can't really expect anyone else to know it.
Yes, Clear is kind.
Clear is kind, as Brene Brown says.
Thanks, Brene.
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, the number 9s, we should have a drum roll or something, is the peacekeeper, right? So
Yes.
my favorite peacekeeper is Marci Mitchell. They don't call her Joyful Marci for nothing, right? So these are the peacekeepers. They're adaptable, they're optimistic, and their basic desire is to be at peace and have stability, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Marcy's basic fear is being separated from the world or being alone, right? So Marcy is all about community, right? Anybody knows Marcy, that's a big deal for her, and that
Yeah.
is the place where she's doing her best work, right? That's where she's healthy, is when she's doing that. Now I know Marcy so well that I also know that she has a pretty strong 8 wing. So if you get her into a place where she she needs to take on the role of the boss, she can do that, right? And so anyway, that's a little bit more about Marcy than she probably wanted me to share with you.
No, we're all here to be open and vulnerable and talk about our stuff.
Yeah, but that has been something that I have watched Marcy evolve into, right? So she wasn't always able to be in that place of being the boss, and she's just got her voice, and now she lives in that place. And so that's been a really beautiful thing for me to watch with her. So as Marcy learns the Enneagram, she'll be able to come back and do that thing to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that falls in the Enneagram, where you're not so like aware, because you're super aware, and of course you know this, but even in other areas, that's why I love to have you point it out to me, because I'm like, as you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, definitely, but I don't necessarily pick up on it myself so much. So
yeah.
and awareness is, God, it's always the first step to choosing something better. When you know where you are, you can think about, okay, intentionally, this is where I am, but intentionally, where do I want to go, versus just falling through it all.
Yeah, just floundering and feeling you're hopeless and this is just my life. And right, that's not why we're here, just like you said, right? That's not why we're here.
That we want to do that purposeful evolution to what we want.
Yes.
And I don't think it's all about control either. It's just more about intention, and that's where the awareness, if you're not aware, how do you set your intention?
Right. Yeah, if you have no starting place.
Right? You got to know where you are.
Right.
Well, so I'm interested to hear, you said you had examples of famous people from all of them. So let's go through and hear who some of those are.
Yeah. So I was just kind of tooling with these today. So now that you know who all the Enneagrams and what their types are, this will be fun for people. So an example of the number 1, the perfectionist, is Michelle Obama.
Oh,
she's the one.
Love her. That's awesome.
Again, she's probably pretty evolved, right? So my guess is she evolves into her 2 wing, where she's she's loving people and whatever, but she does it coming from a perfectionist place. Also, Steve Jobs is a number 1 on the Enneagram. Okay, number 2, which is our helpers. You'll like this one. Dolly Parton is
another one I love.
Yeah, she just right. She just gives and gives and gives,
Oh my
right?
God.
And she
I adore her.
Yes, she just makes everyone happy. She wants everyone to love her, right? And Maya Angelou, right? Is another 2.
These are just the best examples.
Yes. Number 3, or is all about the goal, is Oprah.
Okay. Love it.
Driven, comes from a difficult place, right? And Beyonce is also 3. And so I like those
Excellent.
people in my little group. I'm proud of them.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, you're walking with giants.
They probably have to work on emotions too. So so I
Mhm.
understand them. Number 4, everyone will love this. So the 4 is the hopeless romantic,
Mhm.
Taylor Swift.
Oh.
And super creative, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
wonderfully creative, which I think so many of our kids are now, and I'm
Yeah.
loving that.
Yes.
Number 5, so the intellects. So Einstein, as I mentioned,
Mhm.
Bill Gates is a 5. A lot of those folks all run in the same 5s.
Mhm.
Pretty introverted, probably, right?
Mhm.
So, but have to be really good at this one thing, right? Okay, number 6 is the loyalist. I thought this was fun. Tom Hanks is a loyalist.
Okay. Another guy we love.
Yeah, right.
Wonderful.
But you can see he's probably done a fair round of work, or a
Mhm.
fair amount of work around his
Yes.
loyalty. Because he's probably not afraid of too much, or you wouldn't see him that way anyway, right? But you
Mhm.
can probably see that vulnerability in his acting, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also Princess Diana
Oh.
was a loyalist, right? And you can see
Yeah.
that how she was loyal to those who were having difficult times, and
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
her passion, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Lovely.
Number 7, our epicures are Robin Williams.
Uh, Wonderful.
Right? Is this all starting
Yeah.
to make sense a little
Oh
bit now?
yeah. Oh
Right?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Elton John
Yes.
is also number 7, the epicure, those spice of life people, right?
Yes.
And then the 8s, the bosses. This is a big one. Martin Luther King,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
Right? You can just feel the power in that one,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right. Who else was going to take all that on, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and number 9s, the Marcies, the joyful Marcies of the world. She surrounds herself with Alicia Keys
Nice. Nice.
and Queen Elizabeth.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Yes, she was
Okay.
a peacekeeper. Yes, people kind of want to probably give her a bad rap, but I think she was probably good at keeping
Oh,
the peace in what she did, right?
yes.
For all
She
those years.
amazing, amazing woman. I think about her having just transitioned from this life after the life she lived, and boy, I mean, she made a huge difference, but I think what a cost, to have.
Yes, she gave up a lot
She gave up, yeah,
to keep the
so
peace.
much, so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And on
That's
that note,
fascinating.
those are the Enneagrams. So how fun is that, right?
It is fun. And, I love all those people. Like, it just reinforces what you said about there's no bad numbers, there's no good numbers. Like, those are like amazing, a list of amazing people. And we obviously were surrounded by our own, examples of various numbers, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah. So,
Well,
yeah, so I think, maybe we'll do like a live Enneagram workshop at some point, right? We just
oh,
get a
that'd be
bunch of people
great.
to sign up, and we'll put them in breakout groups. And that's when you really see the beauty is, when I did this work, they would put you in these panels. And so everyone would take the test, and then all you 3s go together, all you 9s go together. And
Yeah.
then you would put each other up on a panel, and then you start asking questions. And oh my gosh, you see people's light bulbs going off, right? So, and when I do these workshops with my husband's company, and they all take the test and they show up for the workshop with me, they just love it. They just love it, and then it helps them in their work environment, right? Because they're working with so and so who maybe they're not having such a good time with, and now they understand that maybe so and so is an 8, so their approach with that 8 is now different, right? Because they know where that person's coming from. They better know how to communicate with them. They better know how to be in relationship with them.
Mhm.
Ask them a simple question or for some help, right? So it's incredibly helpful for those who are using this in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
That can
Yeah.
be a tricky place to be every day.
Yes.
And versus showing up going, oh boy, here comes so and so. Instead, you could understand their Enneagram, and then you find them interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder
Again,
how.
we harp on this, but this coming from a place of compassion and empathy and understanding versus judgment and anger and frustration is good for you. It's good for the other person. It's good for the world. More of that right now, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So just as a reminder, you can go to the EnneagramInstitute.com and find a way to take the test if you want to go ahead and do that. We're going to link Debbie's slides to this episode of the podcast, so you can look at those and see, go back and dig in if you think you know who you are or you think you know who someone is. And then, but don't forget to take the test so that you find out, who you really are or who they really are. But yeah, I hope this leads people on just helping people on their journey of self-discovery and growth and evolution, which is what we want to do. We want to evolve. We want to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Debbie, for sharing all that information. You do a great job of making it really understandable. And I hope we pique some attention with people and pique their interest and get them to dig a little deeper into the Enneagram and what it means for them.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Marci.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
And now for a moment about meditation and how it can help you and your family to self-regulate and mindfully return to a place of calm and centeredness. Our Core Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. Meditation is just one of these powerful tools, and through a special partnership with Donna Appadone, we have created a group of meditations only available on our platform and via Donna's own website. Here's Donna.
Peace is the goal. Peace is the destination. Love is the vehicle that takes us to peace. I am the driver of that vehicle. Hi, I'm Donna Appadone, and I'm the person who writes and produces meditations for this podcast and for the Core Experience website. This meditation is about peace. We travel to peace, we try to find peace, we're on the road to peace, and we forget that peace is really available to us all the time. It's always right in front of us. Sometimes we're too busy to see it, but it's there, and it works for everyone. Peace is available to everyone. It works for everyone. What makes the ride so much fun is that we can discover, rediscover, and repurpose peace with the people all around us so that they recognize it too. Remember, whatever is going on in your world right now, you can do anything you set your mind to do. Love. Cooperation. Patience. Compassion. It's all easy when we have the same goal. Peace is the goal. peace is the destination. Love is the vehicle that takes us there.
Donna's book, called Drive Time Meditations, is a collection of 183 of her purpose-driven motivators. Drive Time Meditations is available on Amazon.
Thanks for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast. You can find us at coreexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and with your community.
Our meditation segment is produced by Donna Appadone with music from Scott Holmes. The full collection of meditations is in Donna's book, Drive Time Meditations, available on Amazon and at donnaappadone.com. Thanks to Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from She Reigns Creative and Inspire Your Brand. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the host, the producers, or financial supporters. I'm Debbie DiManno.
And I'm Marci Mitchell. The Warrior Parent Podcast is a production of Core Experience.